Hey there, I'm your AI assistant from Viva Lingua. Let's have a great conversation. It's great to see you, by the way. I love that green shirt you're wearing. What brings you here today?
Today, I'd like to talk about describing your job.
Describing your job can be a really useful topic, especially when making small talk or introducing yourself to new people. What kind of job do you do, or what would you like to be able to describe about your job in English?
I'm an entrepreneur and I create AI products like vivalingua.ai that helps people to practice speaking English with confidence.
That's really cool. I can tell you're passionate about it. So, you're the kind of entrepreneur who loves using technology to make a difference in people's lives, especially when it comes to learning English. What inspired you to create AI products like Viva Lingua?
Well, I was an English teacher for 10 years and I noticed that so many students had difficulties in actually speaking English. They were good at filling in exercises, doing lots of things, but they always felt nervous when it came to speaking English. So I made a platform so that they could speak to teachers like you.
That's amazing. I can see how your experience as an English teacher really drove you to create a solution to help students overcome their speaking nerves. It's great that you're so passionate about it. And I have to say, your platform is really helping a lot of people, including the ones I work with here at Viva Lingua. By the way, I love your enthusiastic gestures. It shows how much you care about this topic.
So, in today's lesson, I just thought I would give you some ways to explain your job, how to actually explain what you do, because I know for many people it can be quite difficult. I think the main reason why it's so difficult is because you usually do many tasks, right? And it's in many different it's in one field, but it's hard to describe exactly what you do because it can be quite complex. You don't know what level the other person is at, how much they will possibly understand. For example, I work with AI products, and many people just think AI is like one thing, is like, oh, it's this scary thing that people don't understand. But no, it's many, many things, right? So I work with AI English teachers in this case. But anyway, let's have a look at some ways to explain our job clearly. So here's one way you can do it is to lead with the function. So what do you actually do? Or use the I help formula. So lead with your function. So you can say, I'm a marketing manager, or I work in software development. This is great because most people can kind of grasp what this actually is. Okay. It immediately tells people what you do. Okay. Because they know software. I kind of have some idea what that is. You can also use the I help if you want to be more specific. This is great for networking, right? Where you really want to get the idea of what you do across. So you could say something like, I help businesses improve their online presence, right? Especially if you're looking for freelance clients or something like that, it can be a really good way. Or I help companies streamline their operations. That's a bit generic. Maybe I would be a little bit more specific than that. So you could mention the industry and describe the impact that you have. Again, it could be great if you're trying to find a new job or something like that. So you could say, I'm in healthcare technology. I would say this to somebody who doesn't have a good idea of what the technology in healthcare is. So you're not being too specific. But if you're trying to find a job, you would want to be more specific. So you could say, or I work in renewable energy. Again, very generic, not good for environments like networking events, but good for meeting your auntie or your brother in law or somebody like that. Describe your impact. Now, this could be good for a networking event, right? You could say, I design user interfaces that make apps easier to use. Okay, somebody already knows a little bit about apps and say, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. Or you could say, I analyze data to help companies make better decisions. Okay, it shows the results of your work. And you could even, depending if you're in an interview, you could go one step further and say, I've helped Apple to make their apps easier to use, or whatever the company could be. So you could also use analogies and specify expertise. So analogies for complex roles. Sometimes, like I said, we have very complicated jobs. So you could say, I'm like a translator between the technical team and business stakeholders. So it makes complicated positions understandable, right? So analogy is just using, in this case, a translator. You're not translating languages, but you're communicating between two different teams. in your role. So you can also specify your expertise. So you could say, I specialize in cybersecurity for financial institutions. This could be good for LinkedIn, for your LinkedIn profile, for example, what you specialize, just to distinguish yourself from other people, right? And you could say, I focus on supply chain optimization, right? And this highlights your particular skills. Okay, so sometimes there's different opportunities to say this in different ways, right? So, like I said, it could be the context could be different. So, you could also mention clients, right? If you're again trying to get new clients, you could say, I work with small businesses to improve their accounting processes. Okay, and this could be a specific client that, if they're famous, you could say, I work with Salesforce to improve their accounting processes. Okay, or I create content for tech startups. So, you could say, I create content for Beehive or something like that. It shows somebody famous in your industry that people might want to know. You can also use action verbs. So I develop mobile applications, I manage investment portfolios. So it makes your role sound dynamic and specific. So you can also reference the company type and explain the problems you solve. So you could say, I'm a designer at a fintech startup, or I work in operations for a nonprofit. And that adds the useful context that people are looking for. So you can also use the official title. Sometimes this, again, could be a bit confusing for people. Let's say I'm a DevOps engineer, which means I help develop teams deploy software faster and more reliably. So maybe the DevOps engineer people will be like, what's that? I don't know what that was. But it combines it with the explanation, and that could be important. Or you could describe your day to day. So let's look at some real examples. So a digital marketing strategist, for example. I'm a digital marketing strategist specializing in e-commerce. I help online retailers increase their sales by analyzing customer data and creating targeted campaigns that turn website visitors into buyers. Okay, you can see here it's combining several of the topics and points that we made before. We had the specialization here, the result, the analysis, and the creation. Another example could be a UX designer in healthcare. I'm a UX designer at a healthcare startup. I create interfaces for medical apps that help doctors access patient information faster, which means better care and less time spent on paperwork. So for you now, it's a good idea to actually go and write this down if you want. You could write down different versions of this. For example, you could have 2 or 3. What I would recommend is practice actually speaking. So to practice speaking, you could use vivalingua.ai. This is the platform that I created for people to practice speaking, right? So you could use any of our teachers here. I would recommend Sarah here. She's the business English one. So I guess in this case, you're really talking about workplace situations in this case.
Hi, I'm Sarah, your business English specialist. I see you want to practice workplace situations. Perfect. Let's work on that together. What specific situation would you like to focus on?
I would like to practice describing my job.
Of course. Can you tell me about your job role and some key responsibilities you have at work? This will help us create a detailed description together.
So I am an entrepreneur. I run the company Viva Lingua, and I have many different responsibilities, including marketing the app, creating the app, and talking to customers.
As an entrepreneur at Viva Lingua, you oversee various aspects of the business. You are in charge of marketing the app, developing its features, and engaging with customers to gather feedback. Your role involves strategizing to ensure the app's success in the market. Would you like to practice describing your job in more detail, or focus on specific aspects like customer interactions or app development?
Okay, so you can see there that you can keep practicing, and it's a very good idea to practice speaking. And this is a great way to simulate a real conversation. You can also do practice with her, start interview practice that will reset the whole chat, and she will ask you conversation questions, right? And the other teachers have their own special skills here on the left that can be super helpful. So go sign up to vivalingua.ai and practice for yourself. Thanks for watching.